Hi, I'm Diane, your host of Epic Conversations. Do you realize how important it is to hear the voice of God? Our special guest, friend David McClure, he has insight into the answer to this question, so this is going to be good. David is passionate about customer service, management, and leadership. He graduated from Charis Bible College, and he's the executive director of AWM operations at Andrew Wommack Ministries. So we appreciate you and are so thankful that you could join us. You're the reason why we do the videos. So let's get the answer to this question. David, thank you.
My pleasure, Diane.
Coming back.
It's always a joy to be here, and I want to tell you, God is blessing what you're doing here.
Oh,
You're giving voice to people who may not have another place to get that voice out, the wisdom that God has given them, and so you're playing. It may seem little to you. You're playing a big part in building God's presence and building people. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, David. That was very nice of you to say. Thank you so much. So tell us what's on your heart that you're going to share with us about.
Well, I think first, because this won't air for a while, I want people to understand today is September 13th. And it was just 3 days ago that Charlie Kirk got killed, assassinated. And because of his Christian stance and him speaking about the Bible all the time, he was truly martyred.
Yes,
assassination is when somebody's killed for their political or religious belief. Being martyred is dying for the gospel, and he was both of those. So I just want everybody to understand what's going on right now as you and I sit here today. And we both know for the last few years this country, I won't even talk about it, this country has gotten very in each other's face. They're very much about what you ought to be doing, even if I don't even know you. I heard Diane said this. Diane, you ought to be doing this. We've gotten so controlling without having any control on what people ought to do. And if we just look back at the last couple months, forgetting about Charlie for just a minute, a couple months ago, it was a Democratic lawmaker couple from Minnesota who were gunned down in their house because of their politics. Another couple up there who were in politics were shot and wounded. It wasn't that long ago, this young couple who were interns in D.C., political interns, just a few weeks from being married, were shot down.
Ah, a lot of killing going on.
And of course, go back a few months, President Trump, assassination attempt on him. And now we have Charlie Kirk, where somebody who is a voice of Christians, the voice of conservatives, the voice of the United States of America and how we started, has now been martyred and assassinated. And so that's kind of where we're at today as people start to watch this. And as I've been processing all this, because it was kind of surreal when it happened. You just didn't expect it. And when I first heard that he'd been shot and I saw the video, I'm thinking, Charlie's a tough guy, He'll probably be like Trump, because he was supposed to be here the next day at Charis Bible College.
Yeah.
And he'd just show up with a Band-Aid on his neck and start teaching until I found out how serious it was. So I think as Christians especially, first and foremost, and then as leaders, we need to take a hard look at what we're saying, and then also remember that we have to keep speaking. Because a lot of times, I'm not going to say another word. We go this way or we go that way.
Yeah.
And I think we really have to take a look at that right now, because Charlie was trying to lead a movement of young people. He was doing something that hasn't been done here in a long time. He was talking to college-age students as if they were adults.
That's
For a long time, we've kind of, they're only 19, 20, no, I need to keep paying their bills. They don't know what's going on. We started treating them like they were kids still. And I can tell you, you and I, when we were 18, we were grown-ups. Now, we may have been stupid grown-ups at times, but we were grown-ups and we were responsible for our actions. Charlie was going to these college-age students, and here's what he was doing. He wasn't just making them, think. He was making them justify what they believed. Because a lot of times we only go this deep in the ground. Well, I think this. Well, why do you think that? He was making them justify their belief. And that's almost radical in this day and age. But even the young people in the college who seem to disagree with him since his assassination have been, look, I didn't like the guy. I disagreed with almost everything that came out of his mouth, but he did not deserve that. And so suddenly, the country is starting to wake up, at least part of it, and like, okay, wait a minute, now we need to slow down a little bit. So that's kind of the situation we're in right now, and the audience needed to understand, because this message is for anybody who hears this. So that's why I titled this message, kind of a harsh thing, Stay in Your Lane.
Yeah. In other words, mind your own business.
That's a good point. Mind your own business. But we also have to understand that sometimes your business, not mine, but your business is to speak into me. You know, hey, David, you did this, and I'm not sure you should have done that based on, you know, who you are in Christ, who you are in your job, who you are as a father, as a husband. And so, you know, there's a place that my business, your business cross paths, because we have that relationship. You have the freedom to speak into me and call things out if I get out of line in something. Outside of that, when we don't have that freedom, we just talk to the people we have the freedom with, and hopefully they catch what we're saying, and then they start sharing that with that person who they do have the relationship with. But we just have to think through that a little bit more than we've done for a long time.
It requires wisdom when to speak up and when not to speak up.
Exactly.
Because sometimes we may have an opinion, but if we really listen to the Lord, am I free to give it? He may say yes or no. But we don't know, because every situation's different. And that's why we got to hear the voice of God and tune in.
And as I've thought about this, and I'm one of those people that I'm not as active as I should be, but I'm always moving forward. And when you do that, quite often you move from moving forward to striving to move forward. Striving.
Yeah.
We're striving to do this. We're striving to do that. Well, how am I going to do this? Because, you know, I need to do it. And we end up in a striving mentality, and that will do nothing but wear you out.
Yes.
Because I can tell you, I still do it, not as much as I used to, but I can easily just start striving. Okay, well, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, and pretty soon I'm like, why am I doing all that? Why am I striving to accomplish this? Because when you fail, and we all fail, but when you fail because you've been striving so hard, it can affect your opinion of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what we've seen in this country for a while, not just young people, older people as well, that they're striving to accomplish their will in everybody else's life, and not everybody is willing to accept their will in our life. And so they're striving for that, and then the more you strive, you will say stuff you should not say.
That's a good point.
Because you're, okay, how do I, if I can't actually thump her on the forehead, how can I get her attention? How can I get her to stop for a minute and realize that I'm right?
I think people maybe they like to be right too, huh?
And we all do.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to be right. We all want to be appreciated. We all want to be respected. But quite often we strive in those areas too. And then, well, why aren't they respecting me? Don't they know what I've done? Well, maybe they do, and maybe they're envious of you. I don't know. But we put so much weight in everybody else's opinion, and it hurts us. And at the end of the day, we should, forget Christians, as human beings for a minute, we should recognize people. We should say, hey, that was a great job you did on that. And man, Diane, I just really enjoy spending time with you because you always make me think. You know, we should be saying those things, but as the individual, I think of Joseph.
Yeah.
And Joseph in the Bible, you got to love Joseph. You know, he loved God. He was like a kid. You know, just think back to when we were kids. You know, years and years and years and years and years ago. And we come running in the house. Mom, look what I did. You know, we just got home from school. We drew this horrible picture, colored in the outside line. Mom, look at what I did. Well, I think that's kind of how Joseph. Dad, family, listen to what the dream I just had. And they didn't really like it. Now, if your family doesn't like something, that's kind of bad. So, poor old Joseph, he gets sold into slavery by his brothers, and then Potiphar's wife accuses him of something he didn't do, so now he ends up in prison. And both those circumstances, you know, he was innocent. Now, I'm sure, like any young boy, he had plenty of things to be guilty, but he was innocent in both these cases, and yet the closest thing we can find in the Bible where it sounds like he might have been striving a little bit and not trusting God was he's in prison. Everybody's following Joseph because he's so full of wisdom. And suddenly the butler and the baker from Pharaoh's house are going to get released. And as they're getting ready to walk out the jail door, Joseph says, "Remember me when you get in front of Pharaoh." Now, that's the closest thing we have that we could say, well, he was kind of striving. I was trying to make things work, you know. But that's all we have on that. So I say that because, not saying it's right or wrong, but it's like quit thinking you have to be perfect for one.
Yes.
Because we all do that occasionally. Well, you know, if I tell him he's going to be in front of my boss and he might mention that. At the end of the day, we just need to spend a little bit more time with God. Mm-hmm. And you know, I'm going to look at my notes for just a minute because I wrote down 3 things and I added 4th while I was waiting.
Okay.
So first, to help eliminate striving, we have to trust God.
Yes.
You know, that he has our best interests at heart, that he is for us and not against us. The second thing is, if we trust God, now we're going to start trying to hear God. And if we don't trust him, well, I know the word says God sees and hears everything, but I'm not really sure that's true. And so when I pray, you know, I stick around for 30 seconds. He hadn't said anything, so I don't think he's really listening to everything. So, you know, we have to get better at trusting God and then start believing he wants to talk to us. And then we have to take the time to hear God.
Maybe patience might help.
Patience.
Patience? What's that? Maybe patience might help.
Yeah, we'll write that down. Patience. See, you're already pouring into me.
Oh, goodness.
And if we trust God and we hear God, then we're going to be more apt to follow God. Not that we will follow him, but we'd be more apt to follow God. And then the last thing I thought of while I was downstairs is to help eliminate striving. Because when we're striving, we're always striving to impress people. And to get ahead, to accomplish this, accomplish that. Is if we could get to where we love people a little bit more, we might strive a little bit less. So
the change the focus.
Change the focus.
A focus on people.
Yes.
Instead of the task to try to get something we think we want out there somewhere someday, that we focus on people.
Yeah.
The people are the most precious thing.
They are. They are. Even that young, I think about the young man who killed Charlie Kirk. Yeah. 22 years old.
He needs prayer.
And sounds like he came from a good family. You know, so those of you who, maybe you've had a kid gone astray. Maybe you're a good parent, maybe you're a bad parent. But even the good parents, sometimes, kids, this just shows at 22, you're an adult to make your own decision. He made one. And then we all want to talk about doing the right thing. Here's his dad who figured out it was his son. And his dad turns him into the police. That took a lot to do that.
That took a lot of courage from his dad.
I can't imagine being in his shoes, but that is doing the right thing when people are watching.
Yes.
He could have easily hid that because he loved his son. I mean, there's no doubt about that. What parent doesn't love their child? And yet he made a decision, and sometimes we have to make that decision to do the right thing as well.
That no matter what the consequences, his son can die.
Yeah.
The death penalty if he's found guilty.
Yeah.
So that'd be like you as a father allowing your son to be killed.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was doing the right thing for if he punished.
Yeah.
That's a tough decision.
Somehow we have to, through this time right now, and not just through this time right now, but for years into the future, we have to get to where you know your lane, okay? You know where you have freedom to talk, and you don't have freedom to talk. But at the end of the day, and Lesley and I were talking about that this morning, who is in your area that is as people who've lived quite a while now and have a lot of experiences, that we can start sharing some of that. I just got through speaking to some new phone ministers the other day, and our trainer, later on, I ran into him the hallway, and he said, David, you have got so many stories. Because I always tell them a story, but I tell them something God says about them. I tell them that we are trusting them in the job they're going to do. We're equipping them to do the job. But then sometimes, I'll throw a story in there. And sometimes, here's the thing about stories. Sometimes, okay, I'm a Christian, but sometimes our stories are, somehow I lived.
You lived through it.
I don't know how, but I lived. And you can fill in whatever you want as to what he may have done that he lived through, but a lot of us, you didn't, but a lot of us have those stories that you were going how fast on a motorcycle with no helmet when you were 18 on a dirt road.
No.
You can fill in all those. But the other thing is, the stories are to, get them to realize that, oh, yeah, I can do that. I can do this. And so sharing stories as we're talking to young people is so vital. And also not sharing stories sometime, because I have a lot of stories, of my pre-Christian life. I learned a few years ago, and usually they're funny, okay? Just saying, usually they're funny. But a few years ago I realized, I probably shouldn't tell that story. And sometimes we have to come to that realization that, it's a memory to us. But we shouldn't share that story, because what's that person going to do with that? They may try and go duplicate. They may try and do something, further than you went on that. So we have to be careful what stories we share, but we have to be willing to share stories that let people know, look, I am not perfect. I'm trying to think of which disciple it was. No, man, get up. We're human too. And we have to let people know that, because you get in certain positions and you just think you're greater than, and we're not. We were talking before we started filming. One of my favorite scriptures is in the end of John, where Peter's about to, or not Peter, but Jesus is about to go his way, and he's talking to Peter, and he's telling Peter basically how he's going to die. And John, the disciple that we all know Jesus loved the most, because John told us that more than once, but John is following along with them, and Peter sees him, so he's just got this bad news. I mean, you think about it, he's got this bad news about his death is not going to be of old age. And he sees John, and he says, Jesus, well, what about him? Because at the end of the day, we want everybody to think just like us, to react just like us, so that we don't have to, Diane, you shouldn't do that, because we just all do the same thing. Peter wanted to make sure, well, if I'm going to have to suffer, is he going to suffer too? And Jesus said, what is it to you? If he stays until I come back, you go do what I told you to do.
Yeah.
And if we think about that, if we're trusting God, we're hearing God, and we're following God, we're going to be doing what God told us to do. And our only concern with other people is, can I help them? Can they help me? And not about, well, what about them? In a tone that, like if I'm going to have to do that, I want them to have to do that as well. If I'm going to have to scrub a toilet, I want them scrubbing the toilets too.
Yeah, isn't that something how we think
Yeah.
that other people should do what they should and shouldn't do when we don't really see the whole picture?
Yeah.
And so what was Jesus' response? Pretty much, you stay in your lane or mind your own business or never mind what he's doing. You do what you're supposed to do.
And in this day and age where confusion seems to be running rampant.
And there's a lot of it too. I can understand logically, like, well, wait a minute, why do I have to do this and he doesn't have to?
Exactly.
And then you try to reason it out, and you can't, because there's, I think, underlying factors we don't know.
Yeah. And, that scripture we were just talking about,
Let's read the reference
here. It was
here.
John 21, chapter 21, verses 20 through 22.
Yeah.
And as we just talked about it, it'd be like, well, nobody could misunderstand that. Jesus says, well, what is it to you if I have him stay alive until I come back? So you think you need, as Andrew likes to say, you need somebody to help to misunderstand that. But to show that it can be misunderstood, verse 23. Verse 23 says, all the disciples talked among, so John's not going to die. He's going to be alive when Jesus comes back. So the disciples misunderstood 21 through 22 as plain as it was, because we all jump ahead to what we think the end is going to be. And I haven't shared this in a long time, but I remember, I don't know how old I was, maybe 25. I'm a slow learner sometimes. That I came to the realization that everybody doesn't think like me. And it sounds silly, but
I know.
I just thought everybody thought this way. They reasoned this way. I just thought that. And then, I don't know how long I've been at Cummins. I started when I was 19, so I'm going to say it was probably mid-20s or so. That not that you don't realize that, but you don't realize that until suddenly, wow, I don't think anybody thinks like me. which you could say, see how God made me unique? I'm the only one that thinks this way. But if I thought that, and you just confessed that you thought that too at some point in your life, that means every young person is having that same thought until that light bulb comes on. Now maybe they're 10 years old when they realize that, or maybe they're 25 when they realize that, but up until that point in time, they think everybody thinks like they do.
Yeah.
And so suddenly, they should be telling you what to do. They should be telling me what to do, because obviously you're not thinking right, because you're not thinking like them.
And when people think the same that we do, it kind of validates something in us.
Yeah.
And it makes us feel secure.
It does.
Oh, they agree with me. I'm okay. But we're running out of time, so how do you want to end this, and what do you want to leave the people with?
I've kind of talked about how people should hear what God says about them, hear what God wants them to do, but always keep their eyes and ears open, because you're going to encounter somebody who may need to hear what you know. They may need to understand that, okay, no, I did that too. It's okay. Just don't do that again. So this morning, Diane, I'm in Exodus right now. And so it was Exodus 20, and God is, they've crossed over the Red Sea now, and God is giving Moses some rules. Now he hadn't done the Ten Commandments yet, but he has a couple paragraphs called the Law of the Altar. And he says, you make an altar from the earth, do your sacrifices. If you use stone, don't use any stone that you've hit with a hammer, because they're unclean, because God didn't make them. You made it because you just chiseled some stuff out. But what he says towards the end of that paragraph is what caught me. He says, anywhere that causes my name to be remembered,
Meaning the Lord's name.
the Lord's name, any place that anything that causes my name to be remembered, I will bless you. And you know, I read that, and I was reading New King James at the time, and it says it's slightly different. And so I looked up some other translations, and most of them say what I just said. Any place that causes my name to be remembered, I will bless you.
Oh.
And here's what he's saying, and I taught on this once before, is, you know, just like in the Bible, they were always building an altar and a testament, so they remembered where God moved, okay? Because the enemy is always going to come.
Yes.
And if we can't remember, you know, we may get knocked off our feet a little bit, but if we don't remember, wait a minute, I was in a bad situation once, and God did this and got me out of it. And so God is saying, anything that causes my name to be remembered, and if you remember his name, you're going to remember, well, he got me out of a bind once. You know, he did this. Suddenly, we're thinking about God and how he protected us, how he delivered us, how he loved us, how he gave us wisdom or an idea on something. He will bless us because at that moment, we're remembering what he did. We're thanking him, and he's going to bless us at that point in time because we remembered something he did before. So,
that's good.
as we close, I know I said a lot there, but as we close, I want everybody to, you know, remember to first off to make those altars where God moved in your life. And every now and then, when something comes to your remembrance and you sit back and you just say, wow, you know that God just said he's going to bless you at that moment because you're thinking nothing else but what God did for you out of his love. So,
amen. That's good. Thank you so
pleasure.
much. Thank
my
you.
pleasure.
We're going to have all the information in the comment section and how you can connect up with David. And we look forward, excuse me, to seeing you next time. And in the meantime, have an epic conversation with Jesus.
This episode has been brought to you by the partners of Diane Grubus Ministries. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share this video with others so more people can see it and be blessed. And if you'd like to become a partner with us and impact the lives of more people through videos like these, go to our website, dianegrubus.com, and sign up today.